First of all, I would like to start with saying I hope everyone had a good Christmas, and here's to a happier new year for 2023. Finally, we have reached the end of the Chibnall-Whittaker era in all its disastrous glory. These instruments of doom can no longer further harm the now ever so delicate franchise anymore, and their venomous preaching is complete. Easy to say that the last 5+ years has had Doctor Who's most destructive and deadliest enemies come to blows with this beloved creation, with its woke narratives and its lack of understanding for characters and its source material, not to mention the final insult of damaging the legacy of the great William Hartnell. This era shall be, by a large majority of fans, will be nothing more than a dark moment in the show's long run, best forgotten and erased from our own personal versions of our headcanon, and to what is now clearly and evidently an extremely close miss with cancellation for a second time. Another potential wilderness years for this iconic hero and his amazing blue box. Had RTD not stepped up again and took hold of the reins, I do believe that this show was done, and done for good. It had been struggling for a while, but by the end of Chibnall's piss poor go at steering the ship, the ratings were well and truly in the toilet. So let's start with the finale of his era, The Power of the Doctor. Did I watch it? Yes. I originally watched the first 3 episodes of his run and the odd one in between, but ultimately I couldn't bring myself to continue to stare upon the wreck that was spinning out of control. But eventually, as we approached the last episode, I decided to see it out, knowing it didn't really matter to me personally, as the damage caused was past the point of repair. Despite not really having watched the show for a while, I still managed to immediately pick up on the fact that nothing had changed and it still ran like a complete convoluted mess with no direction, jumping from scene to scene with more chop than the high seas, and characters with meaningless dialogue that doesn't even slightly help to drive the story forward. A throw of nostalgia bait in attempt to soothe the volcano before their last bow that was too little, too late, if not probably one of the few parts worth watching for. A parody of blueprints lifted straight from the previous, more successful past, forced into an already rushed and crowded final episode. Then the start of an overly CGI'd regeneration scene that would have supposedly faded out to black and see the end of this once great British icon. Overall, it's pretty much what I now expected from this team and this era, and I was only watching to see it out of the door really. And in my opinion, it was a pointless failed experiment that should have never have happened, and I am personally glad to see it gone, and hopefully now it's behind us. At this point, I really thought I was done. This era for me was just a reactionary thing, as I couldn't help but watch it out of pure curiousness to see them pull apart the years of other people's great work. The slow deterioration of a close friend and mentor. I was ready to be out fully, but then, slowly we heard the rumours that RTD was looking to come back, and before we knew it, things up high were changing. Tough choices were being made, and the show's future didn't look as dead in the water as it once did, less than 6 months prior. Personally, I had felt so burned by what had been done before in the past that I had now remained quiet and extremely cautious. My faith in everything they say or do had been tarnished deep down, and I had my doubts at any news of his return. But even knowing how the state of the franchise had now been left in, I knew that if ever there would be any chance at all to save this show without having to resort to cringe-worthy pop songs about being in distress, then RTD would be the one and the only one who now could come close to doing this. I mean, let's face it, he is extremely well knowledgeable in the history and the characters, and he does have precedent. I don't have to agree with his personal politics, but as long as he keeps it out and returns to his way of doing things as he always did in his original run, then I would be okay with this. He has always time and time again proven himself as a professional when it comes to writing, and understands people, both characters on page and as crew whom he works alongside. He has a fun attitude to life and never seems to shy away from the fan base. Quite the opposite. This is the sort of person you need running Doctor Who. Like those from the classic era, he knows what he wants and he'll work hard to get it. We can only now patiently wait to see what someone with this sort of passion can deliver for us all in the coming years of the show. So, now let's take a look at what I think for his choice in casting for the future 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa. Okay, I just want to get one thing out of the way here. Myself, in my own opinion, has always believed that the Doctor should always remain male for one thing. And as for his skin colour, yes, I do believe that there is nothing racist about wanting your hero character of a 50-plus-year-old franchise to remain to be portrayed as what I saw as quintessentially a white British gentleman. Now, saying that, do I ultimately care now that the choice to cast Ncuti has already been decided? No, not really. It is something small of a change, and it can be explained within the canon of the show if they choose to do so, but it doesn't really matter in my honest opinion, and as long as Ncuti can understand the character well enough to put an interesting spin on it, just like most of his predecessors, then I think he'll do fine. Although I haven't seen him in anything prior, I have heard that he is a good actor and he takes his craft very seriously, and I believe RTD would never have chosen him had this not been the case. In the few appearances he has made so far, he hasn't really said or done anything that would warrant me to put up any red flags, and I have actually found him to be quite bubbly, warm and approachable in his actions. The 2 seconds of screen time in character is nowhere near enough to make any kind of a decision on how he'll perform, but let's just say, with what I've seen, I'm hopeful, although the costume does leave a lot to be desired. The coat I can probably deal with, but really, that jumper, that is what you're gonna go with? Millie Gibson, the new companion, a Rose copy or not? Well, with RTD taking control and David popping up in the 60th specials, the poor girl was always going to get these things said about her. But being blonde doesn't mean that you're a council estate portrayal. She hasn't even appeared on screen in character yet, so how anyone can judge her to be a recreation of Rose is beyond me. From what I've seen of her and Ncuti together, they seem to have built up quite a nice rapport with each other. She has credit as an experienced actor, so I'm reasonably happy to see what she can do with her character going forward. Then there's the new logo. What can I say here? What I say is, yes, finally, there's something that was needed to get me to sit up and take notice again. A classic look brought into the modern age, with the diamond image to represent the show's long run returning to its rightful home on our screens. It's simple yet looks captivating, although I do think that it will change again for Ncuti's eventual takeover. But still, for now, it shows that thought and care has gone into it, and that it does again give me hope that the rest of the production should be delivered with as much equal care and attention for us who are waiting. When I heard the announcement of David's return, I have to admit, I was a little bit disappointed. Now hear me out. I loved his era as the 10th, and was happy to see him return during the 50th, and have even met the bloke and found him to be an amazing chap, but I felt, with this, and nothing against him, it was seeming a bit too same old go-to guy again. There were better options for them. Well, let's say bringing in Paul McGann for example. But I guess the choice was made, and that's the way it will be. After all, his era was so successful for the show, it makes sense as a business to play your best when things are looking bleak, so I kind of understand. I really started to pay more attention once the 60th trailer had aired. The feeling of what the show had once been felt almost real again. That classic RTD look to the shots, lighting and direction splashed across my screen, and I liked what I was seeing. It felt like it had never been away. The CGI and practical costumes within the trailer looked absolutely fantastic, but sadly, I have to admit I've never really been a Neil Patrick Harris fan. But seeing him here, even for such a short moment on screen, I found myself smiling as I watched his character portrayed. His display of depth from just a glance captivated me to wonder about who he is. Is he the Celestial Toymaker? Possibly. Probably. Who knows for sure, but he comes across extremely creepy. As others have said, there's a definite hint of the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, almost like a stage performance as he seemingly projects his darkness towards the audience. I always loved the Donna Noble Doctor friendship, so to see her return alongside her family is okay with me, and gives a chance to tie up a couple of loose ends. Yasmin Finney seemed quite a capable actor in the short time on screen, even if most of it was just standing there staring with a confused, shocked face. But no real issues here. Again for me, it's a case of I don't care if she's a trans person outside of the show or even as character, as long as in the end you're fully committed as a serious actor deep down and you act as it should be. I would have loved to have seen Wilf pop up in the family scenes, as he's probably one of my all-time favourite characters, but I shall look forward to seeing Bernard's final outing in the role, as he will be truly missed by all. Overall, the trailer actually excited me, not to the level of a nutty mega fanboy, but it certainly gave me hope that things are now finally heading in the right direction. I will now let my past anger go somewhat and watch to see if it actually delivers in the end. That will be the real decider for me going forward as to if I am ever to place my faith in this show again. So, on top of all of this, we also had a bunch of leaked videos and images from what appeared to be the new TARDIS set under construction, and I have to say, if these are real, this console room should look absolutely amazing. The upscale in size is great, if not a little empty spaced at the moment, but I assume that's something that will be taken care of with a wee bit of set dressing. After all, when you look at the concept drawing, it does show a jukebox. Maybe that's just the start. If these are the colour schemes, it definitely gives a very Hartnell era look to it, with a mix of a modern touch. The console itself looks to be very sci-fi and more like a spaceship's controls, rather than previous versions that look like scrap thrown together in a steampunk fashion, and potentially, now, more like something that I'd always preferred they'd return to. But again, it shows promise. Clearly the expanded budget they now have to work with is really paying off, and it shows. It makes me look forward to its eventual reveal in all its glory on screen, and when fully lit correctly, it should look fantastic. So let's get down to it. How do I feel about it all today? I feel a lot more pleased with what I'm seeing and hearing. My need to see this do well again and return to its rightful place could be answered, but with everything that has come before, I do still remain cautious. They let me down so hard last time, I was ready to walk away for good, and that it's really going to take a lot to get me back, fully on board, as the fan I once was. But in all honesty, I will watch, and then I will see what I feel about this show, its future, and if it will continue to have a place in my heart again. I need to see them save it, as I don't think it can sink any lower than it already has, and it's truly lucky to even have any life left at all after Chibnall's rampage in the driving seat. My opinion is they have one last opportunity to do the right thing, and I think that they know it too. So I wait like everyone else with my fingers crossed, and I hope what we get is a soft reboot into a new golden age for a well-deserving iconic character. So then, does this show have a future? For my opinion, with what I have seen up to this current point, all I can say is, potentially, yes, if they don't screw it up at the final hurdle. Thank you very much if you took the time to listen this far to my ramblings, and please like the video if you got some kind of enjoyment from it. And if you haven't already, I'd love you to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with any more upcoming videos. Cheers.